Welcome back to the Journey to the Farlands. All right. Well, let's see here. It's time to check in. Got a bunch of stuff to get rid of. And a door to make open and get out here. Let's see. We've got skeletons and zombies over there. Nobody particularly nasty over here. Let's see. Let's get rid of that. Get some dirt. Close that up. And let's see, I need to be headed west, which is that away. Onwards to the Farlands. Alright, yeah, once again, I have unfortunately gone an unfortunate length of time between episodes. Sorry about that, but sometimes things happen, get in the way. Most of which is alleged real life. But you know how it is. Stuff happens. Okay, let's get rid of some of this and get rid of that. And yeah, we're good to go. Alright. How am I doing on? Okay, logs okay. Wool is alright. Alright. Moving on. Okay, the size of the world today, the beginning of this episode, is 6,379.26 megabytes. As we proceed onwards and getting going here in this journey to the Farlands, walking west in Minecraft Beta 1.7.3, the last version of Minecraft to have the Farlands, and basically talking, answering questions, and yammering on about all manner of things. As I proceed westward here with the idea of raising money for Child's Play charity. A worthy cause, definitely check it out. There's a link in the description and a donate button for that on my website, and so on. Okay, now in addition to that, there is another matter that I have mentioned a time or two recently, and some folks have helped out, and I appreciate that. It's the matter of a family in need because of a serious problem with the lack of, with an income issue and so on. And, well, you know how that is. Now, as it is right now, there is a new job in the situation, but it's going to be like another 3 weeks before the first paycheck comes in. And you know how that is. You're at the end of your rope. You've got nothing left, and you got a new job, but you have to get from that, say, 2 or 3 or whatever weeks to the first paycheck before you can actually start the process of getting back on your feet again. That's what the situation is here. And so, give that some thought. And if you feel like you want to help out on that, there's a link in the description to a donate page where you can help out with that, and it will be very much mucho appreciated. And all donations to that will, of course, go directly to those folks that are in need. I never see nor touch a cent of it, so it'll go directly to them. And thank you very much for those who have donated, and thank you very much for anyone else who chooses to do so as well. Okay, let's get this boat going, get moving. Okay, now, onwards. Now, while I have this journey to the Farlands going, I have another journey to a different Farlands in a different game. The game being Elite Dangerous, which is another one of those big MMO-ish kind of space games where you're flying internet spaceships, and there is all manner of things from piracy to combat to, you know, where you're fighting the good guys, or maybe you want to be one of the bad guys, or whatever. And there's mining and missions and exploration. When I got the game, in May of 2017. Late May 2017 is when I first got that game. I hit on what I wanted to do with it, and that was the exploration angle. Flying out to places that had not been discovered and doing exploration scans and so on, and getting paid for that. Well, on the 22nd of June, 2017, I left on an exploration mission. I left spaceport, and I haven't been near one since. And just yesterday, let's see, this is Sunday as I'm recording that. So yesterday, Saturday night, I arrived at one of the places I wanted to be sure to get to in the course of this journey. I arrived at a place called Beagle Point. Now, the thing about Elite is that the in-game galaxy, the in-game world, is one of, if not the biggest game world, that at least that I know about for sure, because it features, as the game world, you have the Milky Way galaxy. And that Milky Way galaxy in-game is at a 1-to-1 scale. Just like in the real Milky Way galaxy, there is, as I understand it, in the neighborhood of 400 billion star systems. There are that many in the game version. And basically what they did was they used real-world astronomical data for as much of it as they could. And then when they ran out of that, they used procedural generation to create the rest of the 400 billion star systems in the galaxy. And as of the last time I looked, which is a few days ago, approximately 0.09% of the galaxy has actually been explored, has actually had a commander fly to it and do exploration scans and sell data from there and so on. Oh, come on. Chase the boat. Chase the boat and end up halfway across the water by the time I get to it. Well, maybe not this time, but it's happened. Anyway, so I took off on this thing. Now, I decided that Beagle Point was a place I wanted to go to. And it is significant in that it is the place in the galaxy that, at the time I left at least, it was considered the farthest place you could go from Earth without leaving the galaxy. Certainly with ships and whatnot that were available at the time, that was as far as you could get. And that's in the neighborhood of about, 62,000 light years from Earth, if you measure it as a straight line distance. Now, of course, I didn't fly a straight line course. I took off and I headed out along the galactic arm, the spiral arms of the Milky Way, and I proceeded outwards along the arm toward the edge of the galaxy. And then once arriving at the galactic rim, continue to follow the arms of the galaxy, the spiral arms, outward and, I guess, northward you might call it, and heading towards this place. In the course of that trip, I flew a rather roundabout semicircular course, you might call it. And Saturday, I arrived at Beagle Point, finally, after a very long time of flying. Remember, I left on this trip on the 22nd of June, 2017, and it was just Saturday, yesterday, that I arrived. Now, mind you, I haven't played every day during that 2 years. There was a period where I didn't play for like 2 months, and just recently I'm coming off a period of almost 6 months where I didn't play. And still, that's all right. It still means that I've had quite a bit of time playing. In fact, I believe I've got something in the neighborhood of around 1,400 hours of time playing that game. And most of it was flying farther and farther away on this trip, going from one star system to another, scanning stars, planets, and moons in that system, and then going to another one. Along the way, I landed a bunch of times. I've done 81 landings. And those landings, a few of them, some of the early ones were just simply to practice the fine art of landing, because it's not always necessarily as cut and dried as you might think. And the rest of those, beyond practice, most of them were for the purpose of doing some surface mining. For some material, for obtaining materials that you could do, that you could collect, that could be used for a number of things. Most important of which was, well, two primary reasons is why I was collecting these materials, was to be able to craft reloads, ammunition charges, or whatever, for a module on my ship that was used to repair damaged components should the ship take damage, and it managed to a couple or three times. And that AFMU, Automatic Field Maintenance Unit, is there to make repairs so that I could keep going instead of having to turn back. Because if your ship is destroyed, here's the thing. If your ship is destroyed, the exploration data you've collected, that is lost. And that's a really unpleasant outcome. All right, get this collected. Head out around this sucker. And so I was collecting materials so that I could synthesize AFM refuels. And another reason is that one of the other things you can do with the materials you collect on planet surfaces is to craft a FSD boost, which the short version of the explanation is it's a thing that lets you increase, for one jump, it lets you increase the jump range of your ship. Because my ship has a jump range of 30.9 light years. And there have been several times I knew that as I got out to the edge of the galaxy, closer to Beagle Point, that one of the things I would have to deal with was the fact that farther out you get, the thinner and more dispersed the stars are, the farther apart they are, which means you get to a point where a 30.9 light-year jump range isn't enough. And so for the last 35 or 40 jumps, I had to use a lot of these things to boost the jump range, which very nicely justified all the time I spent last summer collecting that stuff. But yeah, it's a heck of a thing. I got screenshots that I put together using a third-party program called ED Discovery. It reads the game logs and records information and presents it in a readable, easy-to-understand format. And during the course of this trip, since the last time I docked, I've done 6,406 jumps with an average jump range in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 light years, depending, well, you know, some jumps are more than 25, and a good number of them are less than that when you're in areas where the stars are closer together. And while I'm currently about 62,000 light years from Earth, the distance traveled from star to star going around the galaxy is 119,736 light years. That's quite a ways. 81 landings total. I scooped fuel to refuel my ship 4,766 times, using a grand total of 15,068 tons of fuel, and I have scanned 44,154 astronomical objects, specifically being stars, planets, moons. And those scans have an estimated scan value of a little over 1.7 billion credits. Now, that estimated scan value doesn't include bonuses. Like, for example, first discovery bonus. Because if you are the first person to discover, to scan, and then sell the data for an object, you get a 50% bonus on the price of that. So, and considering that most of that 44,000 objects are first discoveries, then that means that the actual value of that scan data is a lot higher than a mere 1.7 billion. And plus, the trip is only half over. I've only gotten out there. Now I have another trip coming back. And for the trip back, I'm planning a long voyage that is going to be continuing around the galactic rim in some fashion, around the other side from the way I went out, until finally I end up back at human-populated space, an area known as the bubble. And I think that's because it's kind of bubble-shaped, something like that. And at the rate I'm going, it could be sometime in mid to late 2020 by the time I actually get there. Or farther beyond that, who knows. But yeah, it's very cool. As I understand it, Beagle Point is kind of a rite of passage almost in this game. It's a place that most pilots go to eventually at least once. Although most people who go there do so in ships with longer jump ranges than mine, and they take a much straighter route. And their whole idea is to get out there, and get back, and to try to do it a heck of a lot faster than I have. I've spent an enormous amount of time scanning everything I could, taking lots of jumps that were not the most that I possibly could, just simply because I wanted more things to scan and get data on that I would eventually be able to sell for, who knows, however many billions it adds up to. In the course of all those 44,000 scans, I have actually found, now, it's interesting. In the course of all that thing, all those astronomical bodies I scanned, I did find some Earth-like bodies. Out of all the things I scanned, 78 of them turned out to be Earth-like bodies so far. Only 78. So this place that we live on is not very common at all. It's not a very common thing to find a place like Earth. Oh, come on. There we go, yeah. It was an interesting thing, and I wonder how many more I will find before I finally return. But it's definitely not going to be a monster amount, I know that. And speaking of time, it is time once again. Oh, come on. It is time to do this and sleep through the night. At least, perhaps with all my messing around, it'll be time. No, come on. Time to sleep. There we go. Okay, well, I guess that's pretty much the main gist of what I've done, what I'm talking about having accomplished. It's a big deal because it's taken me 2 real-world years to do this. And it could conceivably take another 2 real-world years to get back. And when I get back, it's time for new ship, engineering of ship components, building the best possible ship that I can out of all that, which ought to be a heck of a lot more capable than the one I started out with, which was an Asp Explorer. I did upgrade a bunch of its components and A-rated some of them, but I didn't take the time to do any engineering on any of it, because engineering was still a fairly sort of kind of new-ish thing in the game at the time. And all the updates from the Beyond series, those all happened while I was gone. And there's a lot of stuff that I'm only going to be able to get into very much once I actually get back. And who knows how many updates will happen between now and then. Yeah, so I have a little bit more experience in going into some extreme far lands, because 65,000 or 62 or 3 or whatever 1,000 light years, that's a long way. That is a really long way. You're not going to walk that overnight, or even over a few 100,000 years. Anyway, I guess I need to move on to other things here. Let me excuse myself for just a moment. I have a text file with my questions and stuff in it, but it was covered up. Let's see. Referring to some old questions. Well, there are a bunch of questions that people provided a while back. And basically, when somebody asks a question, I put that on the bottom of the list, and I take the ones I'm asking off the top of it. So the oldest ones get taken care of first. And let's see, I have a few here. Let's see. Someone called Metallic Trap asks, TFC, do you enjoy being part of the Hermitcraft server? Yes, it's very cool. Now, granted, and I know somebody's going to say something about this, so I'll mention it myself. Granted, I don't do collaborative videos with other hermits nearly even remotely as much as I would like to. I'd really love to be able to do more. But it has to do with schedules, time zones, people's availability, the existence of worthwhile ideas of things to do, and preparedness. Because I learned something on YouTube a long time ago, before I ever even heard of Minecraft, which is you don't go to somebody and say, let's do a collab, without having an idea of exactly what it is you want to do. You know, you want to do a collaboration, then you have an idea. You know what you're going to do. You have resources needed, all taken care of ahead of time, and so on, so that it's something you can just jump right into and start doing. You don't just walk up to somebody and say, let's do a collab. It doesn't work that way. You have to have your idea. You have to be prepared with whatever it takes to execute that idea, and so on. And then, of course, there is the question of timing, availability, time zones, people's individual schedules, and so on. It can be difficult to work out. And then, of course, there is the issue of more difficulty implied or created by my rural internet, which sometimes makes life so much difficult fun. I mean, I occasionally have days where I can't even connect to the server, and it's nothing wrong with the server, it's my internet. You know, I know for certain that when I can't connect, it hasn't got anything to do with the server not working. It's my internet being a pile of crap. And there's nothing I can do with that short of moving. And as much as I would like to move for a number of reasons, not the least of which is being able to finally actually have actual fast internet, it ain't going to happen anytime soon, because that kind of moving is expensive. Very expensive. I have conservatively estimated that it could easily take $3 or $4 grand in US dollars to be able to afford such a move, and that's not going to happen anytime soon. I've got way too many things that, frankly, have to be considered more important. As much as I would like to do something like that, it ain't going to happen anytime soon. But it still doesn't mean it doesn't mean that I don't like being on the Hermit Crab server. I like it very much. Get to be there working with, getting ideas, and helping tips from some of the most awesome creative Minecrafters on the planet. I mean, seriously. It's very cool. Even if I don't get to do much with these folks in-game on the server, I have still had plenty of very useful input from them on one thing or another over the years off camera. And that's very cool too. Okay, well, let's see. Time to move on to another one, I think. I tend to start with something, I tend to get to where I answer a question or make a point or whatever, and then I start rambling. And while some folks have told me that, more than once, that my rambling is all fine and dandy and they're perfectly happy to listen to it, sometimes it kind of drifts a little far. Now I'm rambling about rambling. And okay, next up, the Ghost of the Mind says, if you had to move, where would you move to, since you dislike the heat or cold? Made me think of this one for your FAQ. Okay, well, it turns out that is a appropriate question given the previous answer ramble, or ramble answer, or rancer, or whatever you want to call it. Anywho, where would I want to move? Well, the list of candidate locations to move to, I think, would be determined mostly, or at least firstly, by how good of internet can I get in the aforementioned location. You know, because that's one of the number one determining factors for me is how good of an internet service could I end up with? You know, because right now I have, from CenturyLink, the service that I have now, I have the fastest rates available. And I have asked occasionally over the years if there's anything faster coming, and basically the answer is no. And without asking why, I know the reason why. This is a low population area, which means the number of potential customers is severely lower than in high population places like big cities. And so, because of that, they're really not all that interested in spending a whole lot of money on improving the service, because there isn't much in the way of return for it in line, in store for them. You know, they could speed the internet up a whole lot, but they wouldn't make a whole lot of money doing so. Oh, craptacular. And with the darkness coming on, it's time to find a place to dig in before the nasties begin to spawn. And I know there was something back there, but I don't want to dig into a cave. That's just asking for trouble. But I can dig in here into a hillside. Alright, get dug in here, and this ought to do it. Alright, first up, close that, put up a torch. And get the rest of this place dug out. Ah. Okay. Another torch. Throw down the bed, not blocks of iron, but a bed. Get some stuff made up for next time. Let's see. Three boats and 3 beds. Alright, 4 boats, whatever. There are times when I can use that. Alrighty. Get this collected up. I'm going to have fun dumping off junk and whatnot next episode. But okay, and hopefully next episode will be a lot sooner than, you know, a lot more frequently than they have been of late, because I really would like to get a little bit more regular about this series. Who knows, I might eventually make some significant progress to the Farlands that way. Yeah, what a concept. In any event, thanks for watching. Take it easy. I am out of here.